With the latest agriculture news from across the state and nation, it's time for the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. Here's your host, Sabrina Halvorson.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning on the AgNet News Hour. I am Sabrina Halvorson here with Lorrie Boyer. Morning, Lorrie.
And good morning to you and all of our listeners.
So we're going to talk today about deportation and immigration, and this is something that is hot on minds of people, especially since we are just days away from President-elect Trump still, I suppose, taking office. And one of the things that he has said he's going to do his first day, among his executive orders, I think we're planning 100 executive orders in the first day. Deportations are among those. And these are causing for several months now, it's been causing a lot of worry for a lot of Californians, millions of Californians, even if they shouldn't have to be worried about this. It's something that they're worried about. So, and what I mean by that is, even if they are here legally, if they, should not be deported, they are still very worried about this because some of them have already faced issues with being threatened with being deported, even though legally, they shouldn't be. And then, it's all around concerning for a lot of our communities. So a big topic and an important one also for agriculture. Again, we kind of look at things through an agriculture lens on this program. And obviously, a lot of our agricultural workforce are immigrants. Whether they're here lawfully, unlawfully, whatever, it will affect our agricultural workforce. And so it is a big and important topic.
Almost every interview I've done recently with regards to hand-picked crops, especially crops and such, dairies, this worry is top of mind for a lot of these operations owners and management. So very, very critical issue that not only are the workers, of course, afraid of, but the people who are employing them and trying to run our larger operations are very worried.
Right. And so there are a lot of organizations that are kind of bracing for this. One of the things that we saw come through recently, in fact, earlier this week, was from a health clinic, saying that they're aware that there are rumors circulating on social media saying that immigration officials are at their facilities. And first off, that's just not true. And this is a clinic that is specifically for or really targets the Spanish communities. And if people are afraid to go get health care, that can cause all kinds of problems. First off, I mean, no human should have to live like that. When you're afraid to go get health care because there could be some official there who wants to take you from your family, that causes a lot of other problems as well. Now we're looking at the possibility of disease spread throughout the community because people are not feeling safe to go get their health care. This goes beyond the conversation of, oh, well, they're not here legally, we should just deport them. There's really a much bigger conversation here, and it's one that really needs to be looked at because of how all of the different ways that this can affect everybody's, everybody's life.
Yeah, those are really good points. And the other thing I think of is what extent is there profiling going on? So if you are somebody who goes to shop at your local community grocery store or goes to the post office or something like that, are you scared you're going to be profiled? Are you scared you're going to be taken? I mean, I don't know if taken's the right word, but if some of the ICE or some of the Border Patrol people are around, are you going to live in fear? That's not good either.
No, it's not. And I think the profiling, that's exactly that's the right word for it. And that was something I was talking a few weeks back, several weeks back again, with the Agriculture Secretary Karen Ross here in California. And we were talking about it, and she was saying, when people just don't feel safe, that's a major problem. And it truly is. Again, whether they should be at risk for deportation or not, again, people are not feeling safe, and that can cause all kinds of problems. That can keep people from going to school. It can keep parents from sending their kids to school if they think that at some point the family is going to be torn apart. It again, keeping people from going to the doctor when they need health care, keeping people from being able to go to work. That was something that was pointed out for ag employers was, look, your employees are very stressed at this time. Some of them may not be able to make it to work either because of, having this type of stress on you can make you very physically ill. You and I both have dealt with a lot of stress. We understand that. We know what it's like to be facing some type of extreme personal stress that makes you sick. But then also, they may be afraid to go to work because they think that the ICE agents or the immigration agents will be there. And so, even if they're still in the country, we're not getting the work, they're not working. And that already is going to be bringing down our agricultural workforce as well.
There's a lot of rumors out right now on what is going on with ICE and the U.S. Customs and Border Protection activity in California being on a rise. And I certainly don't mean to add to more fears or to more rumors, but I just can't help but wonder, Sabrina, with these major wildfires that are going on here and all the attention being placed on that and all the emergency people and higher ups and decision makers really focusing on that, I can't help but wonder, will some of this take place or potentially take place because of that? Will some of these things go on under the radar? Will they not get as much attention as they should because other emergency attention is being put on the wildfires and other things that are going on in the state?
That's a great question. And, and it's a valid point when we think about it, how much of our attention needs to be on the wildfire. And we're not disputing that at all.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
No, we need attention on the wildfire and all of the people affected by it, and also a look at what caused it, and what prevented, adequate prevention and that kind of thing for the wildfire. Yes, we absolutely need to be having those discussions, but you're right, it does take the focus off of the other issues around the state, this being the immigration issue being a major one. We're going to continue talking about this. We do need to take a quick break, but we will be back in just a moment. This is the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halvorson. She's Lorrie Boyer. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halvorson.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. We are talking about this morning the possibility of mass deportations with President-elect Donald Trump taking office in just a few days. The first time around, California became a sanctuary state and immediately passed some laws that would help prevent mass deportations, like what the Trump administration, what President Trump back then in the first administration had threatened to do. And a lot of it worked. And there's talk about putting some of those same things, or, they're still in place. But it's almost like there needs to be a bigger focus now, or people are more worried the second time around because of lessons learned from the first time.
Another interesting point to me is I know that Trump taking office is just in a few days, and he has talked about deportations, and he has a history of having our wall built. The Biden administration, counter to that, has actually been criticized by several for not having enough immigrant protection, illegal immigrant protection, for not having enough border patrol, for kind of the opposite. So it is kind of an interesting time to be in, because you have one administration that is pretty lax, and another administration that's pretty much opposed to everything coming together under one time, which is now, and what's going on with these rumors of possible deportations. And I wonder, I mean, is it Trump maybe pushing this, and these border patrol folks are getting their assignments from him, or are they coming out from the Biden administration? Like, who's actually directing this right now?
And, and that's a great question. And I think it would take a lot of little investigative work to figure out exactly who's pulling the strings at the moment. Because, yeah, you're right. Are we, is the actions that we're seeing, and we are seeing some actions already, here in California, down in Bakersfield, there's been an increase in deportations. And so there are things that are happening. Now, is that because of the incoming Trump administration? I mean, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, gearing up because we know it's going to happen.
Yeah. And is this just the beginning of it? Or, is this kind of where it's being tried out to see how it goes? I mean, those are all things that pop into my mind as far as questions go.
Right. And, and these are hard questions too. There was talk that the governor could give more pardons to undocumented immigrants who committed some type of crimes, the nonviolent crimes, those kind of things. And I really have mixed feelings on that. And part of it is from personal experience. This was 30 years ago, but I had a car stolen. Well, living in Fresno, I've had 3 cars stolen, and then separately 3 other times cars broken into and things stolen out of it. And one of the times, the only time I went to court, when my car was actually found in somebody's yard up on blocks, he was somebody who was in the nation, here illegally from Mexico, and had already been deported and then came back. And during the course of that, stole several cars, my car being one of them. And the only thing that they really could do was deport him back. And so my thoughts on that is, do we really need more people in the state stealing cars? No, we really don't. But, how effective is it if we're going to pardon them and say, okay, now you're protected and you can stay? Automatically, even though that was 30 years ago, he is the first person I think of. That person who stole my car. Maybe I'm still holding a grudge. I need to let go of it. But so it's a complicated issue, is what I'm saying, because when we're talking about pardoning people for these nonviolent crimes, they still committed those nonviolent crimes and they still had a major effect on somebody's life. I was a young single mom at the time, going to college and trying to do everything, and then to not have a vehicle, and my car was stolen. And then I was responsible for all of the fees. Like,
Oh, no.
yeah, and the car was completely stripped, and I had to pay for to get it out of the towing place and all of that, which first off is ridiculous. But, so yeah, even nonviolent crimes can have a big effect on law-abiding citizens' lives. So should we just go ahead and pardon those to protect those people so that they can stay here? I'm of a very mixed mind on that.
Yeah. To your point about it's already happening, I just thought I'd throw this out. According to a very recent article in the LA Times, the Border Patrol operation near Bakersfield, and I think you mentioned Bakersfield, has resulted so far, according to this article, at the airtime anyway, there were 78 arrests in this area. And keeping in mind, as we started our conversation, this is a big deal for agriculture because the immigrant workforce in that area harvests well, not just that area. I take that back. The immigrant workforce helps to harvest a quarter of the food grown in the U.S. So that is a big deal.
That is a big deal. Do we all want to see a quarter of our food disappear off of our plates, out of our grocery stores? Probably not. And when we're talking about California, that percentage is probably even higher.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, look at the egg situation right now. I mean, we're really struggling to find eggs on the shelves. And when you do, we're paying anywhere from $8 to $12 for a carton of eggs.
Yeah, it's getting difficult to feed yourself around here. But so these are complicated problems. We will continue, as I am so fond of saying, we will continue keeping an eye on it and see what happens as we go forward. But for now, we do need to take another break. This is the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halvorson. She's Lorrie Boyer. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Lorrie Boyer.
I welcome in my guest here today, Michael Ming. He is the chapter of the I welcome in my guest here today, Michael Ming, who is the president of the California chapter of the American Society of Farm Manager and Rural Appraisers. And we will be talking about this organization here in a little bit. But Michael, to get us started, tell me more about yourself and your background.
I've been appraising agricultural property for over 30 years in California. And I got my start from my father that started Alliance Appraisal back in 1952. And so kind of a family business. And now my daughter works with me as well, appraising ag property. And so married, 3 kids, 3 grandchildren with a new one on the way, and 3 kids total, 2 daughters and a son.
Now that we've learned a little bit about you, let's talk about what this organization is.
Okay. The California chapter is a chapter of the American Society of Farm Managers and Rural Appraisers. Basically, the California chapter was established back in 1949, and as it's a chapter for farm managers and rural appraisers. And then it also develops educational offerings and basically upholds like educational and ethical standards in farm management and rural appraisal. We offer accreditations in the national chapter that are also part of the California chapter, include the accredited rural appraiser, which is the ARA, which I am, accredited farm manager, which is an AFM, and the accredited agricultural consultant, which is an ACC. And we also have, excuse me, I'm sorry. We have other members of the chapter that we call friends of the chapter, that are people and companies and that are very important to agriculture outside of our accredited members. And they can be, lenders and bankers, CPAs, brokers, anything ancillary, PCAs, a lot of different people that are friends to the chapter. We're actually the second largest chapter in the United States. We have 250 members, and out of the total membership of the American Society, I believe they have 2,500 members totally. So California makes up 10% of the population of the American Society.
What would you say are some of the biggest issues you're working on right now, Mike, Mike, as an organization, or at least monitoring?
I think we're really monitoring, advocating for educational, good educational offerings, like the chapter. The California chapter puts on the Outlook Agribusiness Conference in March every year, which provides 3 days of educational, really good advanced educational offering for our members and anybody else that would like to take the education. And also the conference itself with speakers, very high level speakers in different areas of expertise, including different crop varieties, permanent plantings, SGMA, Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, a lot of water issues, as everybody's aware of now. We do our best that's what we do really good, is we educate the people that are part of our group and outside our group too. We educate a lot of people that are just ancillary to agriculture about what's going on, the trends. We put out our trends report we put out, which covers all of California and Nevada on basically talking about trends in agricultural valuation, which is a hot topic, has been for a couple of years now with the declining ag market basically across the board, and having people discussing narratives for each region that is in the trends publication. So that's kind of our three-legged kind of stool, along with the education. We do scholarships, and for people that are coming up that are going through their designation courses. So we offer scholarships for them to take classes. We offer internships for younger college kids that are coming through, like say Cal Poly, Fresno State, Davis, or any other ag school. We offer internships into local, ag appraisal firms or ag consulting firms or farm management firms. So that's kind of what we do.
Yeah, a question, we're talking, it made me think about this, especially with the scholarships, is what kinds of trends are we seeing as far as building a pipeline of future ag appraisers? Is there enough people going into this field?
Well, that's what we are trying to bolster with our scholarships and internships. There's going to be a need for good, solid ag, appraisers, managers, consultants, across the board. So that's not going to go away. And we've seen over the past years, a retirement of quite a few, ag appraisers, that were accredited ag appraisers that have basically retired. So trying to reestablish those numbers. We're very excited about the number of kids that are coming in and doing internships that are turning into full-time positions with the ag, appraisers and ag farm managers and the like.
The conversation will continue here today with Michael Ming, who is the California chapter president of the American Society of Farm Managers and Rural Appraisers. Stay tuned. Welcome back here to AgNet West. I'm Lorrie Boyer, and I am visiting with Michael Ming, who is the president of the American Society of Farm Manager and Rural Appraisers California chapter. Michael, what kinds of trends are you seeing here on California agricultural lands and values?
California has seen a marked market that's been going lower value-wise for a couple of years now, and accelerating in areas that have water supply issues. The good water districts that have substantial water supplies and can bring those to bear for their owners, their members, are holding up better than those those districts that are having issues with water supply, or the white district, white land areas that have they have no governing district. It's just they're pumping groundwater, and SGMA is going to be that's going to be a very difficult place to be.
Do you have recommendations as an appraiser on what agricultural landowners can do to bolster some prices for their land?
Oh, really, it's about water supply.
Okay.
And if you have the water supply that you can prove to a buyer, that buyer is going to look more favorably upon your land than, say, your next door neighbor that has a lesser water supply. And that is a substantial, our buyers right now are looking at water supply. That is their main focus of every transaction we do now, is what is the water supply? What can I plant? And what are the ramifications of SGMA when it's fully implemented in 2040? But also, what are the pumping restrictions that are current pumping restrictions, or pumping restrictions that could becoming in the next years leading up to 2040. So you really have to look at those, and that's what we do. Is we do a lot of water analysis, and it's a very difficult position to be in.
Is there issues with salinity, nitrates, or anything like that we should talk about here today?
I think that are all play into the mix, but I think those are area by area kind of defined, where you get into the water quality issues. It's really case by case,
Okay.
area by area, water and salinity, and basically taking a look at subsidence when the ground sinks. It's really a case by case. The districts that have, like the river districts that have a substantial water supply that has been in place for many years, those are the more stable water districts. So when you get into the other districts, you really have to look at the water supply and what the long-term average is for that delivery, whether it's a state water project or the federal or whatever it is. What is the deliverability going to be from now until 2040?
Anything else to mention here today that I haven't asked about, Michael?
One of the things you mentioned, are there other issues other than water? And then you mentioned water quality. I would say that the commodity pricing that we're seeing right now is just, for the most part, is not bringing back to the farm a profitable. It has not been profitable for a couple of years now. And so when you talk about the nut crops, or you talk about, there's quite a few different crops that have not been profitable: table grapes, wine grapes, So we need to get back to profitability, and the only way we're going to do that is to basically either the supply needs to decrease, which means we need to pull acreage out, or demand needs to increase. So we need to get more demand in the market to basically be buying more of these commodities.
Michael, what is the website for more information on the association, but also on your March Agricultural Land Outlook Conference?
It's www.calasfmra.com.
Once again, a big thank you to my guest here today for joining me, Michael Ming, who is the president of the American Society of Farm Managers and Rural Appraisers California chapter. I'm Lorrie Boyer for AgNet West. Coming up next, it's Sabrina Halvorson.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halvorson.
Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack held what will be one of his last calls with reporters on Monday. This was to give us new information about one of the USDA's acts, the Packers and Stockyard Act, and what USDA is doing about that now with the changes coming in the administration. I'm going to play for you now Secretary Vilsack's full comments from that call.
President Biden gave us a directive at the Department of Agriculture that we were to work hard to ensure that the marketplace for farmers, ranchers, and producers was a truly competitive one. Part of the opportunity that the USDA has in this space is by virtue of the Packers and Stockyards Act, which was and is a key tool to helping to level the economic playing field for producers and farmers and ranchers. During the course of this administration, we've taken steps to reinvigorate our commitment to Packers and Stockyards by investing in more people who would be charged with the responsibility of ensuring the enforcement of the existing rules and regulations under the Packers and Stockyards Act, and by providing greater focus on the protections that it does afford. We also teamed up and continue to partner with the state attorney generals, who have as their responsibility making sure that the competitive playing field is as competitive as it can be in their respective states by providing resources to enable them to investigate potential anti-competitive behavior. Also, one of the tools available to us are the rules and regulations under the Packers and Stockyards Act. And over the course of the last 4 years, this administration has taken the responsibility on of strengthening a number of those rules. We began that process by developing stronger directives concerning transparency in the relationships between producers and integrators. We wanted to make sure that producers received enough information and key information so they had a better sense of who they were doing business with when they entered into contracts in which they would be required to make significant investments. We followed that up with a rule that provides greater protection against acts of discrimination or retaliation that may occur when producers exercise their rights to communicate with government agencies and things of that nature. This rule does provide additional protections and additional steps that producers can take in the event they are faced with an act of discrimination or retaliation aimed at them or their operation. Today, we announced the finalization of a third rule, which is focused on a fairer poultry tournament system. This is a system that has come under a great deal of concern and criticism by producers across the United States. And we've taken this opportunity to listen to producers about what would create a fairer system, a more balanced system. We were told by producers that the rule should provide greater insight into a company's payment rates under the tournament system. That in the past, tournaments would allow either increases in compensation or deductions from the baseline pay under an agreement and within a tournament. The rule that we announce today is one that will end the capacity to reduce the base pay, but would continue to allow, obviously, for bonuses to be paid based on the competitive nature of the tournament. Producers also indicated that they were deeply concerned and wary about the veritability that existed within payment rates within specific tournament activities. In order to address that concern, this rule basically provides and directs that no more than 25% of the contract can be based on that variability and difference based on the tournament. Producers also indicated to us that they needed more information and greater stability when it came to the level of inputs that would be distributed in connection with the tournament system. This rule basically provides that stability and greater information. And finally, producers expressed the need for key information on the nature and extent of capital improvements that might be required in order for a contract to be renewed or to be entered into. The rule that we propose and finalize today will, in our view, provide that key information and provide stronger leverage for producers. In the context of the work that we've done, these are three very incredibly important rules. In addition, we've put out an advanced notice of rulemaking on a fourth rule that would essentially provide for greater discovery in terms of cattle pricing, all of which is responsive to the concerns that producers have expressed to us during the course of the last 4 years. In addition to the Packers and Stockyards efforts, we've also focused on the seed report that was issued that recommended the creation and development of a seed liaison between the United States Department of Agriculture and the U.S. Patent and Trade Office. Additional disclosures concerning the quality and character of seeds so that producers would understand and appreciate whether or not the special seed that they were paying for was indeed, in fact, special. The product of the USA label and other efforts to try to ensure accuracy and appropriate representations on products being sold in our grocery stores. The development of a cattle contract library to give producers additional information about terms and conditions of contracts that exist. A stronger and more effective relationship with the Department of Justice, which has led to additional investigations and enforcement activities. I'm speaking of the case, the Wayne-Sanderson merger, as two prime examples, and the previously mentioned relationship with the AGs. The last rule that was being considered by this department was our undue competition rule. Given the fact that there is limited time left, obviously, in this administration, it's a rule that won't be completed, and by virtue of that, it will be withdrawn.
That again, Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack speaking with agriculture reporters in a media call on Monday. He did answer some questions from reporters. We will have more on that right after this quick break. This is the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halvorson, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halvorson.
We continue now with information about the media call that Secretary Vilsack had with reporters earlier this week. In the question and answer period, Secretary Vilsack was asked to clarify what the rule was that was withdrawn. Here is the Secretary's answer.
This is about the poultry tournament system that exists between poultry producers and integrators, where they are essentially in a position in the past to either earn more or actually earn less based on the condition and circumstances of whatever they produce. This is a rule that is essentially creating a much more balanced and fair tournament system in which producers can earn additional bonuses but won't necessarily be penalized. This is a rule that will provide them additional input concerning their responsibilities and have a better understanding of what the integrator's responsibilities are relative to input requirements, capital improvements, things of that nature. So it's really focused on the poultry tournament system.
The full name of the rule being finalized is the Poultry Grower Payment Systems and Capital Improvement Systems rule, and the rule that's being withdrawn is the Fair and Competitive Livestock and Poultry Markets.
That last part was from Andy Green, who is the USDA Senior Advisor for Fair and Competitive Markets. Secretary Vilsack was also asked if he has concerns that the incoming administration may try to roll back the rules under the Congressional Review Act. Here's Secretary Vilsack.
Part of the answer is when one of the largest entities that's engaged in a tournament system has agreed to these provisions, I think it's an indication that, in fact, this does work and it can create a fair market for both producers and integrators. Secondly, I think you're going to find that groups that represent farmers, not necessarily farmers and processors, but farmers, are going to express support for this rule because they understand and appreciate that the current system is not level. It's not a level playing field. It doesn't really provide for fair competition. And this rule basically addresses many of the concerns that we've heard from rank and file and producers who just simply want a fair shake. They don't want the field necessarily tilted in their direction. They just don't want to have to work uphill. And so the reality is this is a strong rule and a good rule, and it's a rule that's bubbled up from the ground up, not the top down. And I think those kinds of rules ultimately are the successful ones and the ones that are preserved and conserved.
The final question we're going to share this morning was from a reporter with Civil Eats who asked about the withdrawn rule. She said a lot of work was already done in getting that to a proposed rule, so she asked Secretary Vilsack about the strategy behind withdrawing it, rather than leaving it as a proposed rule that could theoretically be finalized by the next administration. Here is Secretary Vilsack's response.
Well, there are two ways that you can look at that question. You've offered one way, but there's another way.
Okay.
Which is, in addition to finalizing the rule, incoming administration could also change the rule. And in doing so would have a quicker route to a change because they wouldn't have to do much of the preliminary work that goes into completing a rule or fashioning a rule. It seems to me that this is a area of very specific and very what the right word is. It's complex. It's extraordinarily complex. There's a body of law. There's precedent. There are rules and regulations that currently exist, and being able to provide that appropriate balance, appropriate extension, if you will, and clarity. If you tweak it here or there, it can fundamentally change the direction. So if there is an intent to do that, then it seems like it ought to start from the beginning of the process, not at the end of the process. And so knowing that we didn't have enough time to finish the process, we thought it was the wisest course to withdraw the rule.
One thing to that, Lisa, which is that in withdrawing the rule, the underlying case law and precedent and policy statements from FTC and states and other places all remain. One can't withdraw those. Those are existing case law and precedent, and they can still be used in enforcement matters and cases and whatnot. They don't go anywhere, and so that's an important point, I think, to remember.
That again, Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack. And that is our show for today. This is the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halvorson. On behalf of Lorrie Boyer and myself, thank you for waking up with us.
To get more information on the topics you heard today, visit AgNet West at agnetwest.com. You can also stay connected by following us on our social media at AgNet West on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Also look for Sabrina Halvorson on Facebook and be sure to subscribe to our podcast by searching for AgNet West on your podcast app. Thank you for listening to the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. AgNet West Radio Network, your primary choice for agriculture news.